Okay, so what we want to do for anticipation is we want to come back to our pose to pose. So if you want, you can go ahead and make a copy. I have 2 copies now. And this is our animation that we created previously. Let me go in. I have an extra layer here that I don't need, so I'll just remove that for now. And I want to go back to my layer 1, which was the sphere, because we're going to start with that. We'll come back to the ears later. And on this circle, what we want to do is create anticipation for this jump. Now, remember what we want to do with anticipation is kind of create this motion before the actual motion. So when we jump, generally we kind of crouch down a little bit, we bend our knees, and that'll give us more power when we jump. So same thing here, we want to kind of squash and then go into the jump. And what we can do with this is we can add some frames in between. Now what I have here is I have 4 frames that are just kind of the same frame. And so what I want to do is I'm going to add some in between. And I'll do that in between 2 and 3. I'll add in a blank frame. And what I want to do here is I want to kind of squash that circle a bit. And I'm going to also bring it back. So, squash a bit. Something like that. I'm going to redo that just so I can get a better version. One more time. And you can always kind of edit this, so I'll just scale it a little bit. And I want to keep it on the same level. So we'll use that. And I'm going to do one more. So I'll add in another empty frame. And this one again, I'm going to squash just a tiny bit more. And I will also stretch that out a bit. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, so right now it kind of squashes and then jumps back. So what we can do is kind of go back and add in another frame. And we want to now start to go back to this original circle. So now we're kind of forming back to that original. I do have here an extra frame of this starting position. So I'm just going to delete that. And let's see what that looks like. Adjust, right? Your job is to get a smooth motion. It's not too bad. And we just added kind of 3 frames to create that anticipation. Now what I want to do here though is I'm going to pause here a little bit. So I'm going to just kind of redraw this. I could copy this too, but I want a slight difference in the drawing. So I'm just going to make, a blank. And I'm going to try to trace this just so it holds that anticipation a little bit longer. And again, it's okay if it's slightly different. And I'll press play again just to see it. And you'll see it'll hold it just a tiny bit longer. So if whenever you want to hold a position, just add more frames of that same drawing. So that gives us a little bit more of that exaggerated anticipation. And again, so far we've only really added 4 frames to this. And we have sort of our beginning anticipation. Now, just because we want to keep this going, we want to actually add some more frames to the end here, because whenever we land, we want to squash a little bit too. So sort of the same thing, but at the end of this movement, I'm going to squash. So I land here at about frame 15, and then you'll see that circle is the same circle. So after 15, I'm just going to erase this using the eraser. Don't worry about the ears right now. I'm just going to leave those and we'll fix those at the end. And I'm going to squash this down a bit. Let me redraw that. So, you know, when you guys draw this, depending on what you're drawing with, it can be a little tricky. So use your tools. If you need to scale it, erase it, do what you got to do. We're all going to be at different drawing levels, so we're going to try to keep it simple at first, but you know, use your tools to make it easier for you. Okay, so there's my first kind of squash, and I'll do just one more and then it'll kind of come back up. So I'm going to add in another blank frame. I'll squash a little bit more. And so there's my squash. Let's hit play. So it lands a bit. Now I don't have to do much more than that. I actually like that it kind of jumps back to the original position. What I want to do here though is I want to kind of hold this pose. So I'm going to redraw it a few times. Again, you can also just make a copy if you want. But I want it to kind of flicker in its spot. So I'm just going to redraw that main circle. Maybe twice. And let's see what that looks like. I'll do one more. Now again, once I start adding extra frames, you'll notice I have no ears. So you will need to redraw those. And you could add more if you wanted to, but now we have our anticipation, we have our landing. Now what I want you to do next is you're going to come back, you're going to kind of fix our ears. I can also start to do things like on this frame here. I'm just going to erase where those ears connect. Let me harden that. Sorry, I'll keep it like that. keep that ear on the other side, and you can go in and erase that when you need to. Draw in your ears, and I'll continue doing that all the way for each frame. Again, what I want you to do is add that anticipation now for the ears. So what does it do at the beginning when this ball squashes down? What happens to those ears? How do you think that anticipation would work into that? And then same thing with the landing. What do they do? Maybe they kind of come down a bit with the squash, and let's add some actual sort of realism to this animation. And then you can also do the same with whatever you added. If you added on that third layer a face, or a hand, or feet, let's now animate those. And I'll have an example for you to watch as well. Good luck.